Hey, it's Mr. Shrum, and welcome back to the natural selection tutorial. We left off right before natural selection and adaptations. So let's get into that. All right, so an adaptation is a characteristic or behavior that helps an organism survive in its environment. And these can occur as a result of natural selection. Certain beneficial traits are more likely to be selected than the less beneficial traits. Over time, these adaptations can become a characteristic trait of the species. So adaptations help species adapt to the environment and through natural selection. So think of adaptations, adaptability. It makes them a better fit in their ecology, in their biome. And there are several categories of adaptations. An organism's environment is made up of abiotic, that means non-living, and biotic, and that means living. So biology, think of living things. Abiotic means not living things. And organisms can adapt to abiotic factors. Abiotic are non-living things like temperature, climate, and types of landscape. Organisms can also adapt to biotic factors. And those factors can be an adaptation that can help an organism camouflage itself from predators. An adaptation can also help an organism capture prey. So whether they're a species that hunts other animals or they're an animal hunted by larger animals, adaptations can help them achieve what they need to. So let's look at the different types of adaptations that some organisms possess. This is a butterfly with very interesting markings. So like brown bark-like color. And it works very well when it's trying to disguise itself. All right, so we have structural adaptations, functional adaptations, and behavioral adaptations. Structural, think physical characteristics like the structure of their body and how their body is colored are examples of structural adaptations. They help organisms survive in their environment. So for example, plants that grow in very hot or dry deserts have thicker stems and leaves that store water because water is more scarce in those environments. Functional adaptations, that involves internal body systems where structural is outside, functional is inside. They help organisms, excuse me, perform necessary life functions, maintain balance, and survive. For example, there is a flower known as the corpse flower, corpse like a dead body. It secretes a pungent smell to attract pollinators. Spiders produce venom to kill prey. So something within the organism is produced that helps them adapt. Behavioral adaptations, sometimes organisms behave in certain ways that can increase their chances of survival in their natural habitat. These behavioral adaptations include migration, hibernation, and herding. For example, many birds migrate to warmer climates in search of food during winter. And now we're going to look at some benefits of adaptation. Oh, and here's a picture of monarch butterflies. They migrate to central Mexico in winter to escape cold weather in the north, just like some birds do. All right, so here are the benefits of adaptation. It helps organisms maintain homeostasis in extreme conditions. Green plants photosynthesize, and the process uses water and CO2, or carbon dioxide. In hot, dry conditions of a desert, cacti have special structural adaptations that help them conserve water during the process of photosynthesis. Cacti have spines instead of leaves. The spines have less surface area from which water can evaporate. This adaptation helps cacti survive in the desert. It helps organisms capture food, and some animals have adaptations that help them use sound waves to locate their food. Bats send out sound waves from their mouths, and when the sound waves strike an object, it produces an echo. And from the nature of the echo, the bat is able to interpret the distance from the object, its size, and its location. And that's known as echolocation, because it's using an echo to locate their prey. And this enables bats to find insects as small as a flying mosquito in complete darkness. So it's very useful for bats. And some species of owls have specially adapted wings that enable them to fly silently or very quietly. If you've ever been out at night and seen an owl, they're usually very quiet. It's hard to tell when an owl is flying. And that makes it harder for animals to see an owl coming, right? So we have maintain homeostasis, capture food, protect against predators, and hide from prey. Okay, so the coloration or shape of some organisms provide them with camo or camouflage to protect them against predators. Predators, on the other hand, use camouflage to hide from their prey. The dark coloration on the back of great white sharks, for example, helps them blend into the seafloor. Many animals evolve to look like another poisonous or unpalatable species. Animals use this mimicry, they're copycats, to protect against predation. So here we have an example of the California king snake, and it has evolved to have the coloring of the venomous coral snake or coral snake. So coral snake, this is a poisonous snake. If you've ever heard the rhyme, red and yellow, kill a fellow, red and black, venom lack. This is a good example of that. Where the king snake, you have red and black, they are not venomous. Red and yellow, coral snake, venomous. And in some regions where the king snake lives, the coral snake no longer exists, but the scarlet king snake still fools predators into thinking it's venomous. So that's a good thing for those king snakes. And the last benefit of adaptation here is it helps organisms reproduce successfully. They provide organisms, adaptations provide organisms with a better chance of successfully reproducing. Plants and some animals can reproduce asexually as well as sexually. And for example, sea stars reproduce asexually. They do not need to have another sex partner to reproduce. They can do it all on their own by dividing their central disc into two parts. Each part of the central disc then regenerates the missing parts of the body to form two separate individuals. Some plants have flowers that are adapted to self-pollinate. The ability to self-pollinate ensures that the plant reproduces successfully in the absence of external pollinators. Self-pollination is also helpful when few flowers exist or are widely spaced. Petals of the sweet pea flower, for example, enclose their reproductive structures, which promotes self-pollination. And here you see an enclosed male and female reproductive part in this picture here. K selection and R selection. Okay, so organisms also show adaptations that impact their entire life history. Life history adaptations are responses to the abiotic, the non-living, and the biotic, the living factors, in an organism's environment. And two forms of adaptations in life history strategies are the K selection and the R selection strategies. The K and R come from the mathematical equation used to calculate population growth. The R stands for the growth rate, so R for rate of a population, and the K stands for the carrying capacity of a habitat. So R for rate, K for carrying. And I know carrying isn't spelled with a K, but it makes the same sound. So that's how I remember it. Carrying capacity is the number of individuals that a particular habitat can support. Organisms that are K selection strategists possess traits that help them to not exceed the carrying capacity in a stable environment. Organisms that are R selection strategists possess traits that enable them to maximize their growth rate in unstable environments. Natural selection determines the traits. The organism can't make a conscious decision on which trait to select. Dandelions in this picture with a high reproduction rate are R-selected strategists. So they're banking on their ability to send a ton of seeds that are able to produce new plants, while elephants with few offspring are K-selected strategists. So you'll be able to tell what strategy a certain organism takes. And a lot of plants are R-related, R-selected, and then humans are a little different too. But here's how we can generally tell. It's important to note that not all species follow one selection strategy or the other. Some actually show R selection traits at first, and then show K selection traits later in their life history. So we're going to look at some of the differences between those rate selection traits and those carrying capacity selection traits. So what you see in R selection organisms, they don't live very long. They don't have a ton of parental involvement after fertilization. They grow very quickly. They're generally small and they mature rapidly. They reproduce very quickly at a high reproduction rate. And how do they survive? Their surviving patterns. They have a low number of offspring that actually reach adulthood due to predation or environmental factors. So they overproduce almost. They send out a ton of seeds, and not all of those seeds are necessarily going to reproduce. And that's the example of a plant. But here are examples of that are not plants. You have insects, frogs, and oysters too. Those are all R selection organisms. Then you have the carrying capacity selection traits. These animals or organisms live longer. Their parental care, parents are more involved after fertilization. So think of elephants or monkeys, humans too. We raise our young, okay? We don't just let them fend for themselves, right? Because if you did, babies wouldn't survive. Their growth is slow. It takes years for humans to grow, and elephants, monkeys, they don't develop quite as quickly as these guys do. They don't reproduce as quickly either. They mature more slowly, and they have many or most offspring reach adulthood. So they're not reproducing as high, but each offspring has a better chance of surviving compared to the R selection organisms. All right, so warm up. Do you think humans exhibit trait? Oh, I think I gave away the answer. but I think you can reason your way through this as well. Humans definitely show characteristics of K selection. They are based on carrying capacity. Humans have a longer lifespan than many organisms. They also have few offspring. On average, humans take 12 to 15 years to reach sexual maturity. Humans also care for their young until they're mature enough to live on their own. So, for those reasons, we are K selection. All right. And I'll stop there before we talk about genetic diversity. But until next time, have a good one, and I will see you all later. Bye bye.